They laughed at the table. Not loudly, not with open malice, just enough to make a point. We were at my aunt's house in Chicago. Heavy oak table, 12 chairs, crystal that only came out when someone wanted the evening to feel expensive. The windows were fogged from the heat inside. Outside, the February wind moved hard against the glass. I had driven in straight from O'Hare. I was still in uniform. My jacket was pressed, collar aligned, shoes polished. I do that automatically. Habit, not vanity. Dylan leaned back first. He always sits at the head if my uncle doesn't claim it. That night he had the better seat. His watch face caught the chandelier light when he lifted his glass. "So," he said, smiling into the room instead of at me, "how's life as a junior officer?" A pause. Then a few contained smiles. My mother added gently, "She works in Washington now, at the Department of Justice." She said it like she was clarifying a clerical internship. "Paper clerk," my uncle said. "Someone has to shuffle the files." Soft laughter. I cut my chicken. Small pieces. Even. Dylan wasn't done. "Real work is business," he continued. "Revenue, risk, market pressure, not government archiving." He didn't look at me when he said it. He looked at the others. He performs better when he has an audience. I chewed, swallowed, reached for my water. I have learned that silence unsettles people more than defense. Across from me, my cousin tilted her head. "Do you actually argue cases?" she asked. "Or is it mostly research?" "Research," I said. It was true. It was also incomplete. They relaxed. My aunt gestured toward my uniform. "It's very official," she said lightly. "Very administrative." Another ripple of laughter. Dylan smiled wider. "Emily's always liked structure." I met his eyes then, just briefly. He mistook restraint for smallness. Most of them did. 3 months earlier, I had been in a secured conference room in Washington. No windows, no phones. A map of global server activity projected across one wall. Lines of intrusion traced through Europe and Southeast Asia, terminating inside financial systems tied to defense contractors. I had coordinated the charging strategy. The indictment ran 146 pages. But at dinner, I passed the salt. "Do you at least make decent money?" my uncle asked, as if he were evaluating an entry-level hire. "I manage," I said. Dylan laughed softly. Translation, no. My mother touched my arm. "Government service isn't about money." "No," Dylan agreed. "It's about job security." More laughter. I folded my napkin once, set it beside my plate. They believed they understood hierarchy, business at the top, government somewhere beneath, administrative staff near the bottom. I had never corrected them. There are rooms where speaking diminishes leverage. I let them keep their version of me. Later, as dessert was served, Dylan leaned closer. "You should think about private sector litigation," he said. "Real influence, real money. You'd be surprised what you could do if you stepped out of that archive." Archive. I dried my hands slowly on the kitchen towel. "I'm where I need to be," I said. He smiled like I had chosen a hobby. That was Chicago. 2 weeks later, we were in Washington, D.C. A distant cousin, second cousin technically, had been indicted in a federal cybercrime case. Data breaches, cryptocurrency laundering, unauthorized system access. The family organized travel immediately. "We need to show support," my aunt said. My mother called me the night before their flight. "You'll be there, right?" she asked. "Maybe you can explain how federal court works." "I'll be there," I said. She sounded relieved. The federal courthouse stands in quiet contrast to the city around it. Clean lines, pale stone, glass that reflects sky instead of people. Security was tight that morning, press already positioned near the entrance. I arrived early. I always do. The courtroom was nearly full by the time my family entered. I was seated at the prosecution table, reviewing final notes. When Dylan saw me, he stopped mid-step. Confusion flickered across his face. He leaned toward my mother. I saw the whisper. "She must be assisting," he said. "Junior attorney." They settled into the gallery. I did not turn around. The judge entered. We stood. Proceedings began with standard motions. Defense counsel spoke first, confident, technical, measured. I listened. When it was my turn, I stood. Emily Carter for the United States, I said. Clear, neutral, no emphasis. A small shift behind me. The faint scrape of someone adjusting in a wooden bench. I outlined the government's position. Evidence chains. Digital forensics validation. Jurisdictional basis. I don't raise my voice. I don't gesture widely. Precision carries further than volume. Halfway through the hearing, the judge paused. He was reviewing the master case file, flipping pages. Then he stopped. His eyes returned to the top of the document. He looked up at me. Not casually, not as part of routine acknowledgement, recognition. "Counselor Carter," he said slowly. "Yes, Your Honor. I was not aware you were assigned to this matter." "I am," I replied. Silence settled in a way that did not belong to procedure. He studied me. I understood the moment. My full name appears in sealed filings tied to a classified national security case from the previous year, a multi-agency operation that dismantled an international cyber espionage network embedded within financial institutions. Only a small group of federal judges had clearance for portions of it. He was one. The courtroom felt narrower. "Very well," he said finally. "Proceed." But the air had changed. Behind me, there was no whispering now, no contained laughter. The defense attorney glanced at me differently, measured again. When I sat down, I did not look back. The hearing concluded without incident. Standard scheduling orders. Evidence deadlines. Professional. As the judge rose to leave, he paused once more. "Counselor," he said quietly, almost conversationally, though the microphone carried it. "The court appreciates your continued service." There was no elaboration. None was needed. When I finally turned to gather my files, I let my eyes move briefly to the gallery. My family was still seated. No one smiled. Dylan's posture had changed. Shoulders forward now, elbows on knees, watching. My mother's hands were folded tightly in her lap. My uncle stared at the prosecution table like it had shifted position. They were recalculating. I gave them nothing to work with. I packed my folder, aligned the edges, stood. As I walked past them toward the exit, Dylan spoke quietly. "You didn't mention this," he said. I stopped. "I review cases," I replied, and I continued walking. The hallway outside the courtroom was brighter than the room we had just left. Light from the tall windows cut across the marble floor in clean lines. Reporters clustered near the exit doors, speaking into phones. Defense counsel moved quickly, already calculating strategy. I walked without hurry. I have learned not to rush after controlled moments. Speed suggests reaction. Behind me, I heard my name. "Emily!" My mother's voice. Tighter now. I stopped near a column but did not turn immediately. I let them come to me. Dylan reached me first. "Your lead counsel?" he asked. No accusation, no humor, just the need to confirm a changed fact. "Yes. For this case, yes." My uncle arrived seconds later, slightly out of breath. "The judge, he knew you." "He recognized my name," I said. Dylan studied my face as if it might offer context he had missed for years. "You didn't tell us," he said. "There was nothing to tell." My mother stepped closer. "Emily," she said carefully, "the judge mentioned service, continued service. What did he mean?" I held her gaze. "It's part of my work." She searched my expression for explanation. I offered none. Behind them, 2 reporters passed, whispering about scheduling. A federal marshal moved through the corridor with quiet authority. The building carried itself with discipline. Dylan lowered his voice. "You're not just reviewing files, are you?" "No." The word landed without decoration. He glanced toward the courtroom doors, then back at me. "How long?" "Several years." He exhaled slowly. "You're prosecuting cybercrime at that level?" "Yes." My uncle frowned. But we thought, I know, I said. Silence settled between us. For the first time in my life, they were the ones missing information. My mother straightened her coat. You could have told us, she said, not angry, disoriented. I wasn't required to. Dylan's jaw tightened slightly. He isn't used to being outside the center of knowledge. This is a federal cybercrime indictment with international implications, he said, thinking aloud. You're not junior anything. No. The words stayed even. A door opened behind us. The judge stepped briefly into the hallway, speaking to his clerk. His eyes moved once toward our group. He inclined his head in my direction. A subtle gesture, respectful, professional. My family saw it. The judge returned inside. My uncle swallowed. That was not routine, he said. No, I agreed. Dylan ran a hand through his hair. That case he recognized you from, he said quietly. What was it? Classified. He waited, expecting elaboration. There was none. My mother's voice softened. Are you safe? Yes. That answer, at least, was simple. A few attorneys passed by, nodding at me in acknowledgement. Not warmly, not casually, professionally. Dylan noticed that too. You coordinate these operations? He asked. I coordinate prosecution strategy. For international networks? When necessary. He absorbed that. In Chicago, he had described revenue, risk, and strategy as if they were proprietary to business. Here, in a federal corridor lined with SEAL emblems and security cameras, the definitions felt different. My uncle cleared his throat. This espionage network, he said carefully. Was that in the news? No. Why not? Because it was stopped. The simplicity of that seemed to unsettle him more than if I had offered dramatic detail. My mother folded her arms. We had no idea. That was the point. Dylan looked at the marble floor for a moment, then back at me. You coordinated something that reached that level, and you let us think you were pushing paperwork? I never corrected you. His eyes sharpened slightly. Why? I considered the question. Because you were comfortable. With what? He asked. With underestimating me. The words were not sharp, just accurate. He didn't argue. Across the hall, the defense attorney from the hearing exited and nodded in my direction. Counselor, he said evenly. Counsel, I replied. Professional. Equal. My family watched the exchange. Dylan shifted his weight. How many people know about that other case? Those who need to. And the judge recognized your name immediately. Yes. He gave a short, almost humorless laugh. We thought you were an assistant. I said nothing. A reporter approached cautiously. Ms. Carter? She asked. Will the U.S. Attorney's Office be pursuing additional indictments related to this network? Not at this time, I said. Can you confirm whether the investigation overlaps with the prior national security operation last year? I cannot. She nodded, accustomed to refusal. Thank you. She stepped away. Dylan's expression had changed again. That wasn't random, he said. No. He studied me like he was reassessing an investment portfolio. How many operations like that have you handled? He asked. I handle what is assigned. That's not an answer. It is the only one I'm giving. My mother touched his arm lightly. Emily doesn't have to explain her work, she said, almost offensively now. It was the first time she had shielded me in that direction. Dylan looked at her, then at me. I misjudged, he said. The words were quiet, controlled, difficult. I did not soften in response. We all did, my uncle added. Yes, I said. A federal agent approached me then. Counselor, he said, we need to review tomorrow's filing before close of business. I'll be there in 10 minutes, I replied. He nodded once and moved on. Dylan watched him go. They report to you? He asked. We collaborate. He almost smiled at the correction. And this cousin's case, he continued, is tied into something larger? Yes. How large? Large enough. He exhaled slowly. The hierarchy had shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. My mother looked at me differently now, not as if I had changed, as if she had just realized she never understood the original shape. "You were coordinating international cyber espionage cases," she said quietly. "Yes. And She stopped herself. "You assumed I filed documents," I said. "No accusation, just record." No one laughed this time. Dylan's voice lowered. "When that judge paused," he said, "that wasn't about this case." "No. He recognized your involvement in something classified." "Yes? And he respected it." "Yes." He nodded slowly. The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. The building continued its work. My mother adjusted her purse strap. "We should let you get back," she said. "Yes." Dylan hesitated. "Emily," he said, "are you senior?" "I am where I am meant to be." It was the same answer I had given him in Chicago. It meant something different now. He held my gaze for a second longer than usual. "Understood," he said. I inclined my head once. Then I turned and walked back toward the secured hallway, my steps steady against the marble. I did not look back. The secure corridor required badge access. I swiped once. The door unlocked with a muted click. Before it closed behind me, I saw them still standing near the column. My family, slightly apart from one another now, no longer a single shape. I did not slow down. Inside, the air changed. Quieter. Contained. The agent who had approached me in the hallway was waiting near the conference room. Special Agent Ramirez, mid-40s, precise, never casual in public spaces. "Counselor," he said as I entered, "we need to finalize the affidavit language before the supplemental filing." Of course. We stepped into the room. On the table were printed exhibits, server logs, encrypted communication captures, financial routing diagrams mapped across 3 continents. Ramirez closed the door. "You handled that well out there," he said. It was routine. He gave the smallest hint of a smile. "For you." I took my seat and opened the draft affidavit. The current case, the one my cousin was involved in, was not isolated. It was a lower branch, a subcontracted node in a larger infrastructure that had been active for years, an international cyber espionage network embedded in private financial systems, targeting defense contractors, energy grids, strategic data repositories. Last year, we dismantled the core structure. It never made headlines. Operations like that don't. My name had appeared in the sealed coordination memorandum. I had overseen prosecutorial strategy across jurisdictions, federal agencies, international liaisons. I did not lead with volume. I led with documentation. Section 4 needs to clarify chain of custody integrity, I said, reviewing the language. Defense will challenge admissibility. Ramirez nodded. Already anticipated. We worked for 20 minutes in controlled silence. Outside the room, footsteps moved past. Phones rang distantly. The building operated without pause. When we finished, Ramirez closed the folder. "There's something else," he said. I looked up. The U.S. Attorney is considering whether to unseal limited portions of the prior national security case next quarter. For what purpose? Congressional oversight pressure. Some details may become public. I considered that. "And if that happens," he said carefully, "your name will be attached to the coordination directive." I nodded once. "I'm aware." He studied me for a second. "You don't seem concerned." "There is nothing to manage." He accepted that. We exited the conference room together. As we approached the public corridor again, I saw my family still there, waiting. Dylan stood slightly apart from the others now, watching the secured door. When I stepped through it with Ramirez, their attention sharpened. Ramirez paused beside me. "Tomorrow at 8, he said. "Same room. I'll be here." He inclined his head, professional acknowledgement, and walked away. My family saw that exchange. Dylan stepped forward. "That wasn't symbolic," he said quietly. "No. He reports to you." We work together. He exhaled. You're coordinating federal agents. When necessary. My mother's eyes moved from the secured door to me. How high does this go? She asked. As high as it needs to. My uncle looked unsettled now. That other case, he said slowly, the one the judge recognized, was it connected to national security? Yes, and you were assigned. Dylan's jaw tightened slightly. Assigned to coordinate. Yes. He let the silence sit. For how long? He asked. Long enough. He ran a hand over his face. I called you a paper clerk, he said. Yes. It was not an accusation. It was a record. He looked at the courthouse seal mounted high on the wall. How many people knew? He asked. Very few. And we weren't among them. No. My mother's voice softened. Why didn't you trust us? It wasn't about trust. Then what? Compartmentalization. Dylan almost smiled at that. You compartmentalized your entire career, he said. Yes. For security? For clarity. He studied me carefully. And because we underestimated you, he added. I did not respond. Across the corridor, 2 attorneys were speaking quietly about motion schedules. Life continued around us. My uncle cleared his throat. So when that judge froze, he said, he wasn't surprised you were competent. He was surprised you were involved. Yes. In something bigger than this. Yes. Dylan's eyes sharpened again. How big? He asked. I held his gaze. Large enough to prevent a strategic data breach tied to defense systems, I said evenly, across multiple jurisdictions. No embellishment, just fact. Silence. My mother's hand moved to her chest briefly. You stopped something, she said. Yes. And no one knows. They know enough. Dylan's voice lowered further. If that data had leaked, it would have altered operational security. He understood that language. He works in risk. He understands consequence. And your name is in the classified record of that operation, he said. Yes. And the judge was cleared to see it. Yes. He nodded slowly. For years, he had defined influence in quarterly returns. Here, influence had a different scale. My uncle looked at the floor. We thought you were background staff. Yes. My mother's eyes were steady now. You let us think that. Yes. Why? I answered carefully. Because I did not need you to understand it in order to do it. The words settled. No defensiveness. No triumph. Just position. Dylan's posture shifted again. Are there more cases like that? He asked. There are always more cases. That's not what I meant. I know. He waited. I did not elaborate. A security officer approached briefly to ask if we needed assistance navigating the building. Dylan shook his head automatically. The officer nodded respectfully toward me before leaving. That detail did not go unnoticed. My mother spoke again. You carry that alone, she said. No. With who? With those assigned. Dylan gave a short breath of something close to disbelief. And we thought you stamped files, he said quietly. Yes. He looked directly at me now. I misjudged your scale, he said. Yes. There was no apology in the word. There didn't need to be. Recognition was enough. My uncle shifted uncomfortably. This changes things, he said. It changes nothing, I replied. They all looked at me. My work remains the same, I continued. Your perception adjusts. Dylan absorbed that. You're not junior, he said. No. And you never were. No. Silence again. This time it felt different. Not uncertain. Measured. A reporter walked past, speaking into a phone. Coordinated federal response. Prior classified operation. The words drifted briefly before fading. Dylan heard them. He looked at me one last time. I called you small, he said quietly. You assumed I was, I corrected. He nodded. My mother straightened. We should go, she said. Yes, I agreed. They began to move toward the exit. Dylan paused. Emily, he said. I stopped. If parts of that prior case become public, they may. He nodded once. I won't speak about it, he said. I know. That was enough. I watched them leave through the glass doors of the courthouse. They walked differently than they had entered, quieter. I turned back toward the secured corridor. My badge clicked against the scanner again. The door opened. Inside, the air remained steady, unchanged. 3 months passed before anything shifted publicly. Work did not slow. It rarely does. The cybercrime case involving my cousin moved through procedural stages, motions to dismiss, evidentiary challenges, sealed filings. I handled each one the same way I handle all of them, line by line without theatrics. At home, silence settled differently. My mother called less often. When she did, her voice carried a careful tone, as if she were unsure which version of me she was speaking to. Dylan did not call at all. Then, one Tuesday morning, an internal memorandum circulated. Limited portions of the prior national security case would be unsealed, redacted heavily, operational details removed, sources protected. But the coordination directive would remain intact, including my name. I read the notice once, closed it, continued reviewing my docket. There was nothing to prepare. By Thursday afternoon, several national outlets published controlled summaries. Federal prosecutors coordinated multi-agency effort to dismantle international cyber espionage network. Operation prevented strategic data breach tied to defense infrastructure. My name appeared midway through each article, not highlighted, not glorified, just listed as coordinating federal prosecutor. The courthouse did not react dramatically. A few colleagues nodded more deliberately in the hallway. One senior attorney paused by my office door. "Well handled," he said simply. "Thank you," I replied. That evening, my phone vibrated repeatedly. Messages accumulated faster than usual. Former classmates, distant relatives, a college professor, and Dylan. I did not respond immediately. The next family dinner was scheduled in Chicago again, my aunt insisted. "We need to celebrate something," she had said vaguely over the phone. I agreed to attend. The table was set the same way as before. Crystal, polished silver, candles arranged with deliberate symmetry. But the energy was different. When I entered, conversation softened instead of rising. Dylan stood. He did not raise a glass this time. "Emily," he said evenly, no title, no qualifier. I took my seat. Dinner began cautiously. My uncle asked about travel. My aunt commented on the weather in Washington. No one mentioned the articles at first. Then my cousin, careless, curious, spoke. "We saw your name in the news," she said. "That was significant." Silence followed. I set my fork down. "It was work," I said. Dylan leaned forward slightly. "You coordinated the federal response," he said. "Yes." "Across agencies?" "Yes." "And internationally?" "Yes." The repetition did not feel defensive. It felt clarifying. My mother folded her hands in her lap. "They described it as preventing a strategic breach," she said quietly. "Yes." "Of defense data?" "Yes." My uncle cleared his throat. "That's not administrative." "No." A faint ripple moved around the table. Not laughter this time. Adjustment. Dylan did not look at the others when he spoke next. "I underestimated you," he said. No smile, no audience. I met his eyes. "Yes," I said. The word did not wound him. It settled. "For years," he continued, "I assumed you were in a support role." "You assumed what was comfortable." He absorbed that. "I read the oversight summary," he said. "The redacted sections." I waited. "You were coordinating prosecution strategy before the indictment even surfaced publicly." "Yes." "That requires clearance." "Yes." "And authority." "Yes." Silence again. My mother spoke next. "You carried that alone at dinner," she said softly. "While we—" She stopped herself. I did not finish the sentence for her. Across the table, my uncle studied his plate. I called you a paper clerk, he said. Yes. I was wrong. Yes. No triumph, no reassurance, just record. Dylan reached for his glass but did not lift it. In business, he said slowly, we measure scale by revenue, market impact. He looked at me directly. What you did, he paused, is a different kind of scale. Yes. The chandelier light reflected across the table. No one laughed. No one performed. My aunt finally asked the question no one else would. Are you senior? She said. I hold my own cases, I replied. Dylan almost smiled at that phrasing. And others report to you, he added. When assigned. He nodded. You never corrected us. No. Why? Because correction is not required for competence. The room absorbed that quietly. My mother's voice trembled slightly. We thought you were small, she said. You thought I was quiet, I corrected. Dylan leaned back. I equated volume with importance, he said. Yes, and I was wrong. I did not answer. He held my gaze for a moment longer than usual. There was no rivalry in it now, no performance, just recalibration. Dinner continued in lower tones. Questions shifted from dismissal to curiosity. How do these networks operate? Through layered shell structures. How do you dismantle something like that? Methodically. No embellishment, no classified detail, just enough. At one point, my uncle shook his head slowly. You prevented something that could have altered national security posture, he said. Yes. And we were debating your salary. Yes. The quiet that followed was heavier than any laughter had been. After dessert, Dylan approached me in the kitchen. No audience. I built my identity around being the one who understood scale, he said quietly. I listened. And I missed yours completely. Yes. He exhaled. I won't do that again. I met his eyes. That is your choice, I said. He nodded, not defensive, not wounded, just aware. When I left that night, no one made jokes about uniforms. No one asked about filing cabinets. My mother walked me to the door. You don't have to carry it alone here, she said softly. I'm not carrying it, I replied. She studied me. You're steady, she said. Yes. Outside, the Chicago air was cold again, familiar. I walked to my car without hurry. Inside, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. Nothing about my work had changed. The courtroom remained structured. The cases continued. The only shift had been in perception. And perception, I have learned, adjusts slower than fact. I did not feel vindicated. Vindication is loud. This was quieter. A correction made without argument. A hierarchy recalculated without confrontation. At the next family gathering, if there is one, I will sit where I choose. I will speak when necessary. And I will not explain what does not require explanation. Tell me, have you ever allowed someone to underestimate you because it served a larger purpose? If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts. And if you'd like to continue exploring moments like this, stay with me.